about emotional capacity and communication. And so sometimes it feels like when we bring up different subjects, it feels like it's about behavioral management. And we even get that word in anger management, is I'm trying to manage something and I'm trying to put a behavioral solution to my inward problem. And so I think some of it's good of this knowledge, but it has to lead into an experience. And so I know that addiction, there's a lot of behavioral stuff. You see all this stuff, this emotional stuff, this inner turmoil, this constant thinking over and over again. And we need a break from that. We need a break from this spiritual sickness inside of us. The voices in our head. It's like, just let that be quiet. I remember coming into recovery in at a homeless shelter, and I didn't even know the words that I was thinking. Now I understand what I was saying, but I came into recovery to say, I just need this to shut up. I don't know what you guys are going to do at this treatment center, but I just need this to stop. And that has been going my whole life. So to put a couple behavioral mechanisms, tools, if you will, in place is a ridiculous thing for an inside solution. So some of it can be good about realization of how I'm talking, realizing where I am emotionally. Am I in the infancy stage of my emotional growth, or am I maturing? And so I think some of this stuff is great, but it's not the solution. So I know when you go to the doctor will assess a situation, assess your skin rash, and maybe the skin rash isn't from a leaf or something, you're allergic to pillows. I know that there was a guy that came to visit us, and he was with us for a month from another church, and he was helping me out at the treatment center at the time, and he had these red bumps all over him after a couple nights of sleeping at this one particular house that we had with 5 other guys. And so, we gave him some cream, we gave him some ointment, we gave him some anti-itch, and it was like 3 weeks in, he finally goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, this looks like bed bugs. And so we're like, oh, basically you're a meat popsicle and we're just putting itching cream on you. That's not really going to solve the problem. We actually had to bring in an expert to dispose of the problem. They actually found a nest. Their bed bugs are horrible little critters. I learned a lot about the problem of bed bugs. They can go a year without eating. Like, imagine you going a year without eating. These guys are like nuclear survivors. These guys are amazing. So you need a professional to take care of the real problem. And then we do healthy living, like not leaving your laundry on the ground, sweeping and mopping on a weekly basis, that kind of thing, bleaching down doorknobs and handles and that kind of thing. So there's stuff that we can do as preventative measures, but we don't have the capacity or ability to take care of the problem themselves. I've seen people try to take care of the problem of bed bugs, and they've tried 4 or 5 different methods and failed every time. I have an expert in the across the river, and he's a poison management control specialist, and he kills these things and they never come back. And so that's the kind of thing, when we see that we have a problem, a behavioral issue, usually there's a deep root to it. So we really have to get to the bottom of that root and not just try to change and fix my behavior so I'm presentable in the world around me. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at communication styles. Last week we looked at passive communication, and what that looks like. To sum it up is when we use I count, you count. This is the language that kind of sums up passive communication. So basically, I don't count and you count. I go over the top for you, and I don't take care of myself. So this is about recognizing the outward symbols of an inward problem. And so I was reminded of page 13 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's Bill's story where He gets confronted with his alcoholism through a friend. His friend brings a message of hope and kind of guides him into this process. And Bill kind of gets to this step of going like, there is nothing that I can do. I've been to doctors, I've been to specialists, we've tried to do behavioral, and on my way home from the behavioral therapy, I actually drank, all of this kind of stuff, a hopeless situation. And so he goes through this process of turning his will and his life over to the care of God, really understanding what that looks like, coming to believe in a solution greater than himself, and really offering his life to God as he understood him. There's some beautiful excerpts in understanding what we talk about by a higher power in the big book. Some of the ones that you might be familiar with is Father. We might have horrible examples of father. Maybe some of you have been abused by a father. Maybe some of you don't even have a father on your birth certificate. And so there's this perception of what a father is, and how do we play a son. But God is a loving father. And so that might not be your experience. But am I willing to try to understand that experience and become a son, to become a child of God? Then we got, the director. That's the one that writes the scripts and gives everybody their positions and jobs. And for my whole life, I played the director. I was the actor on stage as well. I needed to be seen a certain way. You need to see me a certain way for me to be okay. And then ultimately, we're producers, and we're producers of chaos and confusion. And so that's another view of God, is letting him be the director, and he gives me my script, and I just have to follow the script. He has all the responsibility, same as a parent. I give all the responsibility to God, and I get to play. I get to dance on stage, whatever my job is. And then the principal and the agent. The principal being like a insurance company, where the agent is just going out to assess the damage and going back to the principal and saying, hey, these people need $10,000 worth of roof damage when the tornado hit. The agent doesn't take the money out of his own bank account, but the principal does that. And so we're just the representation of the principal. So those are kind of some understandings of this power greater than ourselves. So here we see Bill. I humbly offered myself to God, as then I understood him to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, and without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins. And so when I hear that word sin, I hear this churchy thing, but what he's referring there is the things that obscure me from God, the things that obscure me from the light of the Son of God, the sunlight of the Spirit of God. I ruthlessly faced my sin and became willing to have my newfound friend. That's another really cool perspective of God as a friend. This is a relationship idea. And take them away root and branch. I have not had a drink since. So that's really what we're talking about. This recovery process is having our new friend, as we understand him in the beginning, to take this root and branch, the cause and effect of what's coming out of me. So I don't want anybody to hear that this kind of communication style is you're a bad person. That's not what it's about. It's not about condemning. It's about realization and about just really understanding. But what we really have to do to be transformed is getting that root and branch that causes unhealthy communication style. So the second one is aggressive communication style. I can talk about this very easily because this was my favorite one. You might be more familiar with the passive style. I'm more in tune with the aggressive style because it worked for me. And so we'll just get into the readings. The aggressive communication is a style in which individuals express their feelings and opinions and advocate for their needs in a way that violates the rights of others. Thus, aggressive communicators are verbally and or physically abusive. Aggressive communication is born of low self-esteem, or can be born of low self-esteem, often caused by past physical or emotional abuse, unhealed emotional wounds, and feelings of powerlessness. So to sum that up is in our language of counting is you don't count and I count. And so this is what the communication style from the wounding within us, we learn to do a communication style that works for us. That's why I use this certain type of communicating. So what this looks like, how somebody, when they're communicating in aggressive style, what this looks like, try to dominate others, use humiliation to control others, criticize, blame, or attack others, be very impulsive, have low frustration of tolerance, so just really set off easily, speak in loud, demanding, and overbearing voice, act threateningly and rudely, not listen, interrupt frequently, use you statements, have piercing eye contact, and an overbearing posture. So this doesn't describe the person. This is a very generalized, broad brush explanation. And so I am familiar with this because it actually sets people off guard and it actually intimidates people. And so this is actually coming out of a root, and people can see the branch of aggressive behavior, aggressive communication. So the root is really, for me, it was deep rooted insecurity that I didn't count, that I wasn't worthwhile, that no one would listen to me because I had nothing good to say. And so I tried to insert myself into all the conversations. Hey, look at me, look at me. I'm reminded of a meme that I found, and it said, "How much attention do you need?" And it's like this little kid goes, "All of it." And so that was me growing up. It's like, I just need the attention. I was very aggressive in seeking your ear and your eye. Look at me, look at me. And then getting into my addiction, I used that as more of a tactic of asserting myself, so that in an aggressive style, so that I would be heard. The reality is it's coming from a deep wounded root. The impact of a pattern of aggressive communication is that you would be alienated from others. No one likes to deal with a very aggressive person, somebody that's using their hands a lot, in a threatening way, always point, like that kind of thing. Have you ever tried to bring something up with somebody that's aggressive communicator? It's not a fun thing because they just accuse you of doing that. They don't listen. They're just going to interrupt you and blame you, that kind of thing. Alienate others, generate fear and hatred in others, always blaming others instead of owning our own issues, and then thus are unable to mature. So just being stuck in this root, of wounding, and then really perpetuating it outside of me. And it just confirms isolation even more. Aggressive communicators will say, believe, or behave like. So this is kind of like how we would act in this style of communication. I'm superior and right, and you're inferior and wrong. So you don't really count. Your opinion doesn't count. What I say is way more important than what you want to say or going to say. I'm loud, bossy, and pushy. I can dominate and intimidate you. I can violate your rights. I can cross your boundaries. Whatever you set up, I can break into. I'll get my way no matter what. You're not worth anything. It's all your fault. I react instantly. I'm entitled. You owe me and I own you. So that's kind of the belief inside of this wounding. And so this isn't about bringing down condemnation. This isn't about implementing guilt. But this is about recognizing that I do these things and it's because of this root inside of me. And so ultimately, we have to get to that root. And in my experience, that if I continue to communicate in aggressive manners in my recovery, I'm going to be filled with guilt and shame and resentment. And it's all in the root of fear. So it's actually getting down to that root of fear, recognizing it through a program of action, going through a resentment inventory, all of this stuff, and actually giving it to God. And so it's not about it's not about what you can do about it. It's what God's going to do. If you could do something about it, you would have already done something about it, and you would be a perfect citizen by now. But this is something that we need actually the power of God, and not rely on our own power and our own strength to improve our behavior. The beautiful thing about this program of action in the 12 steps isn't about just seeing our behaviors, isn't just saying like, look how horrible this is and look how horrible that is, and looking at these character defects, but it's actually leading us into really understanding the exact nature of who I am. That exact nature will be on display for you, and it's not about condemnation. It's about really identifying that my life run on self-will, the life run as me as the manager, will not be successful. And this is the root system that I've tapped into, and I need the power of God actually to rip it up root and branch. And so that is style number 2 of communication.